Okay. Testing, testing. Can anybody hear me? It begins. Okay, cool. Well, welcome to the stream. Uh, I'm not nervous about this at all, but this stream is going to be the first and probably only teach stream I do. Uh, I guess it depends on how well I explain the concepts and how much I can cover, and if anybody wants a second one. But uh, I've got a list of things that people asked me to cover, so I'll probably be covering those in no real order, I suppose. Also, I am actually very nervous about this because I'm not terribly confident about my ability to share how I do what I do. So I'm going to fumble around a lot and I'm going to say a lot, but that's how it's going to be. So before I start, I'm going to cover a list of topics. Some of them I came up with on my own. Some of them I've had people ask me in the past, and some of them I had people ask me on Tumblr and wherever else. Uh, and I'm just going to cover those. I'm going to try and draw and talk at the same time, which I have not historically been able to do very well. But this is going to be miles better than me drawing a circle, then typing in the chat, this is how you draw a circle. Uh, but I'm going to do my best to explain how I do what I do. And if I ever uh, make a misstep somewhere, or if I don't explain something very well, uh, feel free to yell at me in the chat. And I will try and go back over what I just did, and I'll try to explain things better. But keep in mind, I'm not a professional. I wouldn't even say I'm really very good, but a lot of people seem to like what I do, and this is going to be a good opportunity for me to get better in my head about what I do and do not know. So it's just as much for me as it is for you guys. But I really hope that I can, teach you guys something, and that this isn't going to be just a huge waste of everybody's time. Because I am seriously running that risk of just wasting everybody's time. But it's Friday, right? Yeah, it's Friday. And nobody has anything better to do on Fridays. So, there you go. That's perfect. It's an Applejack. Get rid of that. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is the basics of art and what I think is important to start out with. A lot of people, especially in the pony fandom, just see what other people do and they're like, wow, that guy can draw a pony really great. I'm just going to start drawing ponies. And I'm just going to, keep doing this and run my head into a wall and I can't figure things out better. I think that just starting with ponies and doing nothing but ponies is it's very, very limiting. And it's going to hurt you in the long run if art is something you actually want to get serious about and want to do more, especially after ponies and stuff ends, because it's not going to last forever. But what I recommend doing is, not drawing ponies to start out with, which is not, what the people in this chat want to hear, I'm sure. But there's plenty of other things you need to draw so that you can build better habits for even if you're not ever going to go past ponies or away from ponies, they build up good habits so that you can draw the ponies you want to draw better. Yeah, like drawing goats. Yeah, as soon as My Little Pony ends, I'm going to start drawing nothing but goats. That's a little spoiler for the future, I suppose. Robot goats, even. But one thing that is a good habit to build up in general, and will also help you a lot drawing ponies, is to learn how to draw circles, which, you can tell I don't do very well, but I can kind of get close. Uh, Especially as just a habit exercise, or just a practice exercise, learning just to draw bunches and bunches of circles and try to get them as circly as possible, I suppose, is a very good habit to get into. Uh, because, ponies are made of circles. There's a circle for the head, there's two circles for the body, and, that's like 90% of a pony. Then they've got some sticks for the legs. The thing about the legs is that the sticks they're made of are actually just circles, they're longer. But, no, that's wrong. But circles are a very good thing to draw, especially uh, trying to draw them without just moving your wrist. If you train your arm to move from the elbow or from the shoulder, even, which is something I can't do, it's going to help you out a lot. It's going to make your circles smoother, and that's going to cut out a lot of excuse me. That'll cut out a lot of frustration, hopefully. Is drawing circles working on card of paper, not in computer? Go. Uh, Drawing, so if you can draw a circle on the computer on a computer tablet, you can draw a circle on a piece of paper. You can draw a circle on a wall. It's one of those skills that kind of just generalize, which is one reason I'd say it's so important. It's something you can use anywhere. If you go to start drawing humans, humans have some circles. They've got their circles and their blocks, but it's just one of those things that will help you draw no matter what you want to draw. Circles is one thing. Another very good habit or practice thing to do. Let's make this thing longer. Is to draw lines, and to try and draw lines without moving your wrist. Because if you're just drawing from your wrist, you're going to get, this is the line you're going to get, and then you're going to have to move your wrist and draw it again, and it's always going to be kind of curved. It's not, it. There's a lot of times when you're going to need to draw straight lines, and especially if you're not at a computer where you can't just, cheat and use the shift key to draw straight lines. You're going to need to be able to learn to draw straight lines as well as possible. Yeah, like Cheshire says, general skill in drawing transfers from tablet and paper. It's something that will help you get better in any kind of art you want to pursue, not just ponies. In Robo, the circle thing I was doing, I have my elbow down on the arm of my chair because that's just kind of where my setup is, and I make an effort to draw only kind of moving my arm from the elbow down. So I'm not drawing on the right layer. So I try to draw something like this, and it's kind of hard. It's a lot different from just drawing with your wrist, which drawing with your wrist and writing from your wrist is just something we all know how to do. It's just how we learn as a kid. It's just how we learn. So trying to train your arm to do something completely different is going to feel very awkward at first. And truth be told, it's still not something I'm great at. But the actual exercise I was doing was I was just drawing a circle, and then trying to draw as many circles neighboring that circle as I could without making it inside of another circle. So we get circles of different sizes everywhere. And that's good for, so you're not just learning how to draw one circle the same size all over the place, because that's not going to help you out any. It's going to help you out if you ever need to draw a circle that size, then you're going to have that down. But being able to figure out how to draw circles of different sizes, especially, making yourself do it from your elbow down, is a very good practice exercise. That and the lines are both two things that I need to do a whole lot more that I don't because I'm awful and I do not practice what I preach. Actually, I do sometimes, uh, but those are just a couple good beginning practice exercises or warm ups even. Some people I've seen a lot of great artists who just like drop the Mona Lisa in their gallery and say this was a practice sketch or it was warm up for when I could actually do something that really matters. And if that's how they warm up, then that's great. That's not how how I can warm up. I have to, I have to do circles and I have to do lines. Uh, but I guess the point I was trying to make there was, this is a good warm up for me. This is something that makes sense to me. It gets the muscles in my arm kind of looser. You know, it makes the actual drawing I do a little bit less stiff. But there's plenty of other kinds of warm up exercises out there. You just have to look. You just have to find something that makes more sense to you, and just go for what makes sense to you, I guess. But the circles and lines are definitely things that work for me, which is why I was talking about them. Uh, let's see, what else was I going to say? So I guess that's all just general knowledge, and general knowledge is very important to me as an artist because while I do kind of just draw a whole lot of ponies, and that's about all anybody ever sees, I do like to draw other things, and you know, I think it's important to teach people about how to draw other things, even if that's not really what they're interested in. And if you're not interested in that, then don't do it. Drawing what you're interested in is important. Hello, Zalar. Uh, might as well go ahead and talk about ponies. This is a pony. Uh, and one thing, I was going to talk about pony anatomy. And one thing when people are, if you're starting out drawing ponies and you don't really have much of an idea what you're doing, uh, one thing that helped me when I started out was I took screen caps from the show and just kind of traced over them. And I tried to figure out where their blocks were, where the shapes that make them up are. Like this is the circle for her head, and that's about the shape her head's in. This is going to be like the midline of her head, which is the line that divides the left side from the right side. It is more circles. There's always going to be circles. We can't escape circles. Even Spike is a circle. He's two circles and then a traffic cone sticking out of his butt. That's all Spike is. But ponies are basically circles. They're three circles. There's the circle for the head, there's the circle for the front of the body, and there's the circle for the back of her body. And in this picture, it probably wasn't a good one to start with because the circle that is the back of her body is actually partially concealed by the circle that's in front of her body. So that's something you have to kind of figure out. Is that in some poses, like especially front poses, but I'm trying to find one that's straight up from the side. There we go. Like in this one, this is a good, just straight on thing. There's a circle here, there's a circle here, there's a circle here. They don't really touch each other, and you can connect them with lines and make a vague pony shape. But with this one over here, parts of the anatomy conceal other parts of the anatomy. So it's important that even though we can't really see it here, that we still understand that there are two circles that make up her body. And the way we position those circles, tells us the pose she's going to be in. Oh yeah, we're not going to talk about faces right now, Jiminy. We will talk about those later. Ponies are, they're just the circle here, two circles for the body, and then you've got to figure out about where the legs connect to those circles. Because it's easy to just, here's a thing, here's a couple legs. It kind of makes sense, but you know, it's that this isn't going to help you when you decide you want to learn how the legs actually work and how they move and bend. Just copying this verbatim isn't going to help you much. Sorry. Uh, so we're going to talk more about the shapes of the legs and not just the shape that we see of the leg. So on a pony body, we're going to say this is facing front. The legs connect about halfway. This is where, I guess, the shoulder, you would call it, of the pony is. They are probably called something different in horse anatomy, but I don't know horse anatomy very well, so I'm going to be using human terms a whole lot. But the basic shape of a pony leg is just, that curved line that we kind of see here. But again, if you just imagine it as a curved line, it's not going to help you much when you want to bend the leg, because then you're going to be doing this. And if you do this, your pony leg is going to look very noodly. And that could be an interesting thing if that's what you want to do, but that's not what I want to do, and that's not what I want to teach. So we're not going to do that. What we are going to do, withers, barrel, and cannons. That sounds like a tank. That doesn't sound like a horse anymore. But what we are going to do, draw from the front. I'm going to draw from the front. We're going to ignore those things I just put down. This is horse from the front. In that case, the legs would connect here, and they would connect here. Oh. Well, never mind, Robo. We're drawing from the front now. You've ruined my lesson. But how pony legs work is they have, they're supposed to have bones and muscles and stuff inside them, and they've got joints where they're supposed to bend at. So basically, horse legs have these three separate little parts to them, and the lines here are indicating where the joints are, and these are the joints where the leg moves at. So basically, if you're drawing a leg and and the only part the leg bends at is down here, that is incorrect. That would be a leg doing this instead, and that's very incorrect. Pony legs should do, assuming this arrow is facing the front, they should do something like this. The joint, oh, am I right? Yeah. Okay. Connects here. There's actually another joint. I've confused myself. This is good. I'm sorry. I'm doing very bad. That's still wrong, so we're going to keep that. There's kind of a joint here. Then this. Okay. That's how it goes. I'm not going to calm down. I'm doing awful, and you guys are all going to hate me. But no, I'm not doing great, but I hope I'm kind of getting my points across. Anyway, I will not I didn't even think about how this is going to sound without the chat. That's wonderful. So to anybody who's watching this video later, I am not talking to myself. There's actually a few people in the chat room with me, and I'm talking to them. I'm not crazy, or at least I don't talk to myself. We're good. We're good. Thank you. Just draw a goat. Here's a goat. There we go. Okay, so since I've actually kind of confused myself, I'm going to open up a reference image I have because I have a bunch of those saved, and that's going to... This is one of those things that I don't know as well as I like to think I do. So I'm apologizing for that right away. That actually brings up a good point. Uh, yes, I have read the new comic, and I have actually drawn some deer before. So, great. I'm looking forward to the next issue. But, I guess the thing I need to talk about is I've got a lot of reference images built up for pony stuff and for other stuff. And every time, well, sometimes, when I get confused, I can check out these reference images and... sorry. And reteach myself how things work. Which is what I'm doing now in public, because I'm great at things. But yeah, we're going to learn about legs by tracing over this image that already exists. Whoops. So this is the circle for the body. The leg connects here. And it has the 3 joints here, here, and here. Actually, tracing is great. Thank you very much. I trace things a lot, and tracing is fine when you're learning, like I'm doing now. I'm relearning how to do legs because I've completely forgotten apparently. What is not fine to do is to trace a picture and then credit it as your own work, because that is wrong. But directly tracing on top of an image and learning from it is a great way to learn. And it's something I used to have to do a lot. It's something I don't have to do quite as much anymore, except for in poses and stuff that I'm very new at. Oh yeah, DeviantArt is notorious for tracing things. I've actually had that happen a couple to my pictures, which was lots of fun. But it's fine. It's fine. Tracing is fine as a learning tool. Tracing is not fine as a means of producing finished art. If I was going to, just trace over this screen cap and put it on Tumblr and say, hey guys, I drew an Applejack, check out this Applejack I drew, that is not fine. But for me to be doing it here, for the purposes of learning myself and for the purposes of teaching you guys, is a-okay. Yeah, but, so, okay, these are the 2 circles for the horse's body. This horse is a lot leaner and thinner than I tend to draw horses, but that's okay. But this circle here is where the shoulder of the pony is, and the leg has 3 different joints here. And it's important to note the direction that these joints move in, because this one, let's see, sorry, this one bends backwards to what we think, and this one bends at a normal angle. If you have a leg that does the opposite, it's going to look very broken, and it's not going to look good. And people are going to wonder why you did that. But noting how the joints of a horse move is important. But beyond that, knowing how to skin the anatomy. Let's see, skin is not the right word, but how to make the form of the character around the skeleton you just made is also important. Like in this picture, there's the circles we just drew, but you don't see those circles. You see the lines around them. Flesh out. Thank you, Emma. uh, like if I just stopped here, if this was the horse, like you wouldn't actually without this. This looks dumb. This is technically kind of correct because that's the bones of the horse. It's everything is where it should be, but it does not look good. So you got to learn how the skeleton you made, the construction lines you made, are meant to interact with the actual form of the character. And that's another thing that tracing from screen caps or tracing from other people's art even can help you out a lot with. Because one of the things about the show is that they don't have they don't have poses for a lot of situations. They've got poses from the side, they've got poses from the front. They do have poses from three quarters and from rear angles and stuff, but uh, they don't have them very often, and they don't have them in the ways I need them. But I've found other people's artwork and stuff like that that help me. Sorry, that help me draw what I need to draw sometimes. Or back views. Oh man, upward views and downward views are actually very hard. I have what's one of these pictures actually proves that point really well. This picture, they're standing. If you look at the background, it looks like they're looking way up top, down onto the floor with all these ponies on it. But if you just look at the ponies themselves, it looks like we're almost seeing them straight from a straight-on side view because they just don't have those kind of poses built into the show because that costs money. Where's the other picture I was using? There we go. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. It's flash animation. It's supposed to be kind of uh, simple and easy to do for the most part. And that's fine. That's nothing. That's not a slight against the show at all. That's just how it works, and it does work for the most part. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a point in actually watching the show where I would say they should have done this differently, or there was a better way to do this because I'm too busy watching the show and enjoying it. But when I'm drawing things on my own and I want to draw things from an angle uh, that is not in the show, then luckily I have a bunch of reference images, both from the show and from other sources that can help me understand things better. Also, images of real horses kind of help that too because ponies are built kind of in the same way as real horses are. They're definitely horses are definitely thicker, and the circles that make up their body are different, and their legs are also different. I don't know how to draw horses from memory, but the same basic rules kind of apply to horses as do to ponies. So if you ever just need to Google horses to find a certain pose, sometimes you can find things that you need there. Sometimes you cannot. But it's something worth looking at. That's a very awkward looking horse. But basically, pony anatomy is, I guess the basic point I was trying to make way back when is that if you're having trouble learning pony anatomy, the best way to do is to either grab show screen caps and trace over them and figure out how the show does what it does, or do the same with other people's artwork. And one of the horse is longer. Horse is very longer, actually. One of the benefits of doing that with other people's art is that they're usually more approachable than the staff at Hasbro would be. So with some cases, you should be able to get a hold of them through whatever internet means you can, and just say, "Hey, I'm kind of wondering how you did what you did in this picture. Is there any way you could maybe break that down for me. And sometimes you'll be able to get a hold of them, sometimes they'll be able to help you, and that's great. And sometimes they won't, and you'll just have to, you're kind of out of luck and you have to learn it on your own. But I had a whole bunch of pictures I was going to use for anatomy, but they all kind of break down to the same thing as, find the basic shapes, find where things go, and then just skin them appropriately, flesh them out the way they're supposed to be. I had somebody ask me particularly about facial construction, and really the same thing holds true there. You know, you just find a screen cap, kind of figure out how they do it, and you know, and go from there. One one thing, you know, sorry, one thing that does tend to happen though when you're drawing things. Well, actually, let's keep this. I'm going to trace over this. But you do tend to, once you learn the rules of how a thing is made, uh, and you're not, practicing it specifically. You're not like if you just trace over the show's screen caps day after day, and that's your method of learning. You're going to end up with a very show show accurate style, and that's cool. But while that's where I kind of started out, I tended to move away from that after a while, and I ended up finding my own ways of doing things. And that's just kind of going to be a thing that happens, is that, as you learn things on your own, you're going to move away from the show or from the, whatever it is. If you're not talking about ponies, if you draw trees lifelike, if you go out and draw the tree in your backyard every day, you're going to be very good at drawing that tree, and you're going to know exactly how that tree is constructed. But if you ever spend a few days drawing that tree just from your mind, you're going to find different ways of drawing the shapes that make up that tree, and it's just going to be, you're going to learn your own style. That's just how it goes. Like, the way I draw ponies is not very close to the show anymore. Whoops. If I try to draw this exact same pose, or this exact same facial expression, it's going to come out looking kind of different, because I've started to follow a different set of rules than the ones that the show follows. And whether that's for the best or for the worst, I guess, is, it's for me to decide, because it's my art. But I kind of like the way I draw. I don't really have much of an interest in drawing directly in the show style. It looks kind of boring to me, honestly, for flat images. I really like the animation in the show for the most part. I like how the ponies move a lot. But just looking at this, well, this screen cap is goofy. But if we look at this, I don't think that looks all that great just as a still shot. But, which is why I've started to do things differently. And that's very much a matter of preference. I kind of break a lot of the rules that the show follows, but that's okay. Your eyes always come out flat looking. I'm not entirely sure how to help you with that. I mean, if you think that the eyes in the show do not come out flat looking, then, you know, then you can just take a look at the show, trace the eyes a lot, figure out how they make the eyes look the way they do, and you can do that. Or if you find somebody else who draws eyes that look the way you want them to, then that's good too. My eyes, I don't think the eyes I draw are really anything special. I don't, I don't draw them to be super detailed like the ones in the show are. The ones in the show, they've got really big, thick eyelids. They've got a pupil. They've got iris. They've got eye shines out the wazoo. They've got this gradient coming down from here. And even, like on this other one, you can see it's got like a secondary eye shine, kind of, in the iris, where light hits that too. And I see a lot of people, I see a lot of people just put a whole lot of detail into their eyes, and that's just not something that interests me most of the time. And so the eyes I draw tend to be just kind of, here's a shape for the eyelid, and here's a dot that shows you what they're looking at. And it tends to work out for me most of the time. But if that's not what works out for you, then that's great. You do what you want to do. See, I was going to talk about a couple other things. Somebody wanted me to teach them how I draw goats, but I don't think I'm going to do that because it's basically the same. It's basically the same rules as drawing a pony, except for I kind of shape a couple things differently, and that's about it. Let's see, but basically all I've talked about so far is sketching and anatomy and kind of basic stuff, stuff that you can generalize to other things, because that's important. Sorry, but sketching isn't exactly the only part of art, of drawing things. If it was, then I would be very happy because that is my favorite part of drawing, and I really don't. I have no fun, doing lines for things. Coloring is fun, so if I could ever have somebody just ink all my stuff and send it back to me and I could color them, that would be great. But that's not how things work. But a lot of things I've been talking about are just in the sketch stage. Kind of how to construct things, and you know, you can go from there. But lines are the worst. Sorry, excuse me. I'm not exactly used to talking this long. I don't talk very much, period, so this is a bit of a different thing for me. But one thing I would like to talk about some is coloring, because that's also another thing that's actually going to be very important, no matter what you're drawing, ponies or goats or humans or robots or whatever. Excuse me. In flat coloring, let's use these Fluttershy's because I kind of like these Fluttershy's. Flat coloring is super easy. It's at the easiest it is take your bucket tool and fill in your shapes, but at the hardest it's just kind of run your brush over things. Make your horse way too yellow. Horses aren't that yellow. Yeah, actually, one thing I see a lot of people do is they oversaturate their colors and they draw with like full on pink and full on yellow. And they're like, hey, look, this is Fluttershy. Isn't she pretty, guys? And I'm like, no, that hurts my eyes. Please don't do that. One of the things that I've noticed, uh, or that helps me when I'm coloring, yeah, my tablet does a squeaky noise because I probably need a better, or to replace my nub. It's really bad. Uh, but one of the things I've noticed coloring things in ponies is that they're all very pastel, which is colorful, magical pastel ponies. But looking at the actual kind of color wheel or color box here, actually, uh, the natural the natural colors of a pony tend to be in this top left quadrant of the box here. They tend to be not very saturated and they tend to be not very dark. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but not very many. So if you're going to be coloring ponies and you're not going to be using an actual reference, which I have a color reference that I use for most ponies, but right now you can see I'm grabbing colors and I'm going with it. And these are probably not the actual yellow and pink that Fluttershy's colors are supposed to be, but they're the yellow and pink I use, and because they're kind of close, they look good. Uh, but if you're going to be coloring ponies and not using some kind of eyedropper from a reference or anything, then it's really good to kind of keep that rule in mind. Or if you're going to make your own pony character or something and you're having troubles coloring them, it's best not to say this is blue. She's going to be very, very blue, and she's going to be very, very green in the main. This is not a good character. This does not look very good. I am actually making myself a little bit sick coloring this. Actually, yeah, thinking about it, Luna is one of the characters that breaks the rule that I set. She's still very not saturated, but the blue that makes her up is darker, maybe even darker than that. But basically, don't ever saturate your colors too much because I don't know how well this is coming across in the stream and the video, but this is looking very, very bad right now, and I don't like it at all. And don't ever use pure black, and probably stay away from pure white if you can avoid it, because those are also not good colors for anything, because those colors just don't happen in real life. You never see anything that is pure white or pure black. Which is why if I have to draw pure white and pure black characters, I tend to cheat and make them, like a very, very light blue. Like Rarity. Everybody thinks Rarity is a white horse. She's not white. Rarity is actually this weird... In this screen cap, she's kind of teal. But, this is very close to white, but it's a gray. It's a gray, it's almost blue. But, yeah, I don't like whites and I don't like blacks, so I don't use that. That's probably a very bad sentence to say. I don't like the color white, and I do not like the color black. Sigh. So we're going to have this lady staring at us while we work on this other Fluttershy over here. Her eyes are going to be red because we're going for maximum edgelord. Okay. And now let's talk about this actually good-looking pony over here. Her name was Fluttershy. Actually, going back to the no pure whites, no pure blacks. I don't make my eyeballs pure white anymore either. I make them a very, very, very light blue, and that looks a little bit weird sometimes. But especially if I'm going to shade the picture or light the picture, it helps that the eye is not pure white. So if I need to add an eye, like a brighter spot to it later, I have somewhere to go. Excuse me. Because if the eye is pure white, you can't add anything lighter than pure white. So I make my eyes a very, very light blue. Whoops, that color is incorrect. Yeah, you can use pure white as a highlighter, uh, but never as a natural color for things. If something is in very, very bright light, then yes, it's acceptable to use white. And if something is in very, very dark uh, shadows, it would be more acceptable to use pure black as a color. Uh, but never as a character's natural colors, I wouldn't say. Would the eye reflect a bit of the coat color? In real life, I would say yes, this is probably true. But that's not something I'm comfortable doing myself, so it's not really something that I will be able to teach very well. I'm only just now learning how reflections and shiny things work, and it's kind of blowing my mind trying to learn it. So it's not something I know how to talk about very well. I basically want to, that's a good point, Robo. He says you have to tint the eyes whatever color the environment is going to be. So the fact that I'm making my eyes light blue means that there's probably going to be a lot of blue out there, which means she's probably outside. Check it out, this horse is outside. Uh, let's go ahead and color her eyes in real quick. There we go. Now we've got a very sloppy, hastily colored set of flat colors, but that's a set of flat colors. That would be that's where the show stops most of the time. They've been uh, trying to do lighting and shading and stuff in more dramatic moments, which is cool to see, even if it looks kind of gross in the show sometimes. Uh, but for the most part, if you look at any screen cap of the show, characters are just a flat color. Sometimes rear legs are darker than the front legs to make things easier to look at. But, the show never really shades much. But that's a problem because in real life things are never just one flat color. Light is always hitting different parts and not hitting different parts, and if you want to go that extra step and make your drawings look good, that's going to be something you need to learn how to do. We're going to erase the shading I did on the line art here so that I can hopefully explain that a little bit better. Might as well clean up the sketch a little bit while we're at it. That is perfect. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't think that's the best horse you've ever seen. But the thing to okay, well, memory number. Uh, like I said, if you want to stop at flat colors, then that's fine. There is nothing wrong with just doing that. Uh, like I said, this looks fine. She looks kind of like the show. You can tell what her colors are. She looks good, but uh, but I don't like to stop here most of the time. If I'm going to color something, I'd like to go ahead and shade it and highlight it, and that's a personal preference. If your personal preference is to leave things at flat colors, then that's great. Then you do that. and it's probably going to look just fine. But there's going to be a lot of people out there who want to see how a thing is supposed to. Oh, excuse me. But there's going to be a lot of people who want to learn how lighting and stuff actually works. So I'm going to try and go over that a little bit. I have, this is something I've been learning a lot recently. I'm still not the best at it. So, hi, Violet. I mean, you can send any links you want, memory number. That's fine. Uh, but shading and stuff, shading realistically is something that I still kind of have trouble with. Uh, I kind of have the basics down, but actually knowing how light interacts with things is something that I still have to learn for myself. And I'm doing that by looking at other people's art a lot and by looking at how things work in real life a lot. But I'm going to try and tell you guys what I know and how I understand things. Bleh. I see some people sometimes uh, where they just decide that I'm going to make one side of this thing darker and I'm going to make the other side of this thing lighter, and that's where they stop. And that doesn't look too bad. I mean, it doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. I mean, especially if I, make this other side lighter. It kind of looks like, whoops. It kind of looks like light is hitting in all the right places. But the problem with that is that it's not actually. This is not actually correct. Whoops. Okay. If you're going to shade something, you need to have an understanding of where the light is coming from. And in this picture, we're going to pretend the light is coming from about the same direction we were messing around about earlier. We're going to say that the light is coming from this direction. There is either, she's outside and the sun is up there, or she's inside and the ceiling light is up there. That's just where the source of the light is. And so, alright, let's draw a happy little sun to show where the light is coming from. Whoops. Because Dan's art teacher knows what he was talking about. Heck yeah. Light. Okay. Now the thing that made what I did earlier look bad, where I just kind of shaded one side of everything, was that it assumed that Fluttershy here is a two-dimensional object, which the drawing is definitely two-dimensional, and that's how drawings are, they're images. But that looks bad because it just makes her look like she's just a flat piece of paper. To make the shading look good, we have to understand the shapes that make her up, and we have to think of them in 3 dimensions. Like, her head here is not a circle, it's a sphere, which means that I'll talk about your link in a second, Memory. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this stuff in my head. The circle that makes up the pony's head is not just a circle, it's a sphere, which means that light is going to hit different parts of it differently. It's not just going to not hit this side here. It's going to the light is going to hit this side here very strongly, and kind of, as we go back, uh, it starts to hit the sphere less and less and less, which means that at the part where it hits very strongly, that's going to be the brightest part, and the farther away on the sphere you get from the light source, the darker the color is going to be. Now with ponies, I kind of do not snipe the horse. With ponies, I kind of simplify that some. I tend to just grab a soft brush, which this is one of my favorites, and I shade the dark side of the sphere very harshly, and then I kind of make a gradient on the sphere as I go. Same thing with her hair, I suppose. And right now, this doesn't look too far away from what I was doing earlier. It looks, I've got the dark side of these forms are darker than the other sides are. But since Fluttershy is not a two-dimensional object here, some of the shapes are going to get in the way of the light and they're going to block the light. Like this hair here, it actually comes in front of her face some. If I have a shot of her from the side, yeah, let's look at this. You can see that her hair here, kind of comes out. It doesn't end where you might think it would be. So if I want to depict her hair kind of coming forward some from this front angle, it would make sense that it would block some of this light. So I would have to throw some shading down on this area on the sphere of her head where the light would not hit because her hair is blocking it. So now she's got this going on. And even though you'd think that because the light source that this would be the spot on her sphere that would be the brightest, it's actually in shadow because of the other shape that is blocking that part on the sphere. The same thing kind of goes with her neck. The sphere of her neck is going to comes out more front ways. Let's find that picture again. It comes out more in front than the cylinder of her neck does. So it makes sense that if, on our picture, if the light is coming from here, the sphere of her head is going to block out some of that light. So we throw down some shading here to indicate that her head sphere is in front of her neck cylinder. And if you think about your drawing as a three-dimensional object, then it becomes a lot easier to shade things. You don't there's a few different shapes that you just kind of have to figure out and realize how light interacts with. And you kind of just have to practice that and learn it on your own. That's the basics of what will help you the best here, is just learning shapes and figuring out how light interacts with them. And one way you can do that is by drawing actual objects, which I need to do more of myself. But if you have a soda can or something, a soda can is a cylinder just like Fluttershy's neck is. Or if you have a basketball, basketball is a sphere just like Fluttershy's head is. It would be very hard to find something in real life that would replicate the shape of her hair, unless you find a person with hair that's kind of styled like that. Then I guess you're in luck. But I don't really know anybody who styles their hair like that, so I can't do that. But basically, that's drawing things from real life and figuring out how they work in real life is what is the best way, I think, to get better at drawing even simple things like cartoons. Uh, and it's something I would very much encourage everybody here to do. Her ear is opening away from the center. It's Gemini. It's pointed. It's pointing outwards. So, excuse me. So this part here is like the outside of the ear, and this part here is the inside of the ear. And just like we were shading, this outside part of the ear blocks the light that would be coming to the inside part of the ear, which is why I shaded that the way I did. And that's something that that you won't find on the show, because they kind of just draw their ears. Wow, this looks kind of scary. How do I get rid of these horses? Yeah, they just kind of draw their ears. There's a triangle, and then there's a line in it. What is it you don't know, Robo? The way that's shaded does not look right in that case. Well, that's possibly very true. This might be a case where it's just one of those things that I don't know as well as I think I do. But that was kind of the way I understood the shape, and that's why I shaded it like that, even if it's wrong. Uh, and sometimes that's going to happen. You're going to understand things a certain way and carry out your drawings based on that understanding. And that understanding might be wrong. That happens to me a lot, and that's happening to me a lot right now, which is why I'm kind of fumbling over things. But that's part of learning. Is realizing that the thought processes that led you to draw things a certain way might not be correct, and then changing things, changing how you view things to reflect that new information. Actually, Robo, if I defined the shape of the ear a little bit more, that might help you some. See, now to me that looks a lot more clearly. That looks a lot more like the ears are opening outwards. And that kind of seems to be what the show is suggesting here. Is that that's what I see when I see this? Is I see this shape, and it looks like her ears are opening outwards. But that's how. Let's see. Well, the show might not be doing that, and that might just be how I've interpreted that and how I've incorporated that into my drawing. That might be that might just be a case of me stepping away from the show a little bit, which is something I've done plenty. That's just it's something that makes sense. It's something that I think makes sense, but it's not something that is done in the show, which I think is fine. But if I've been looking at pony ears wrong for 4 seasons, then that's going to be very, very odd. Let's take a look at actually memory number. If you wanted to stick around for a little bit after the stream or something, I'd be able to talk more about your stuff then. Because right now I don't think I have a whole lot of things to say without just looking at it in deep, and I'm kind of, I'm going for this. But after the stream, if you'll stick around, uh, I'll hopefully be able to chat with you a little bit there. I actually have no idea how long I'm going to stream. Uh, Actually, I suppose that depends on if anybody has any questions. I've kind of covered everything I thought I was going to stream, or I've covered everything I thought I was going to teach. Uh, but if anybody else has any questions, then I'm cover point of view. When comes to butts, and perspective and point of view. Those are things I can totally talk about some. Give me one moment, and we'll start on that, I suppose. What about clothes? Aeon of Dreams. You're asking about when muscle memory kind of took over, and that's just a thing that happened after a while. It's still not something that has completely taken over. Like, this face in the very center here, I doodled freehand, but for the most part, I still have to use construction lines for things, and I still have to, I still have to very much think about shapes and how they interact. I'm not really at a point. I'm not at a point yet where I can make a good-looking drawing just purely out of muscle memory. That might be a point that I get to in the future, and that'd be really awesome because that'd mean I could draw that much faster. But at this point, I'm not at that point yet. Oh, yeah, by golly, thanks for coming in. And Robo, drawing purely out of muscle memory is not. I mean, it's great for speed, which is something that's kind of important to me, especially in sketching, and especially when I'm doing commissions, because I kind of want to get as many ideas out as I can as quickly as possible so that I can keep projects going. But just talking from a finished picture perspective, then no, muscle memory might not be the best thing. Okay. And Daniel, let's see. Daniel was asking. Oh, it's not so much a technique I have that makes things look so smooth there. Whoops. Where's my thing? There we go. It's not a technique that I have that makes things so smooth. It's a tool that I have. Excuse me. You said you use a smudge brush or something. And the brush that I have, it's called an oil pastel blend thing, which I can share that brush. I guess I'll throw it up on my Tumblr or something afterwards if people want it. But it's a brush I use a whole lot it's a brush I use a whole lot for coloring things and shading things especially, because not only does it smudge colors around, like it also lays them down, and it's very good if you want something nice and smooth, and it's something I like a lot. I actually do have Anta's brush pack, and that's where this the oil pastel thing came from. uh, which you can. I don't. I heard that Anta made his brush pack sellable now, like he's charging money for it, which is kind of garbage, I think, personally. But I got it back before he was charging for it, so lucky me. You bought it. How much is he charging for that, actually? $5 for some digital brushes. $5 for digital hats in video games. Uh, I just honestly, $5 isn't too bad. Uh, I suppose it's not. It's something I would have a very hard time justifying, especially since everybody and their mom is always sharing brushes for free that they've made themselves. Uh, I just wouldn't be able to justify spending $5. And Cheshire's kind of, I'm sure he did put a lot of work into it. There's a lot of brushes in here, but there's only a few that I actually use. Uh, and I'm sure that if I had found those 2 or 3 brushes that I use by alternate means, that would have been $5. That would have been lunch somewhere I could have bought. But I wasn't meaning to slight him or anything. I wasn't calling him out for charging for them. I'm just saying that personally, I probably would not have bought them if that was the choice at the time. Do anthro human shapes stream? I can actually talk about that right now some if you want. That's something that I don't think I do great, but that's something I'm still very much learning. Ponies I've done for, I guess it's 2 years, 2 complete years, and a few months by now. So I kind of have those shapes down fairly handily. And I used to draw, I used to draw humans a lot before that, but I was not very good at it. And if you dig through my old DeviantArt account, you can see just how not good at it I was. Uh, so basically, humanoid forms are something that I'm still looking at, or I'm still trying to learn. And it feels like I'm basically learning them from scratch because the stuff that I did earlier was not, it was it was shapes, and then I would maybe put some legs or something. And it was the curse of, the 3/4 view person looking to the right or looking to the left in a white void. That was what I drew. That was all I could draw. Because back then I didn't draw so much as I just doodled. Uh, I doodle stuff in my class notes and in sketchbooks and just stuff to pass the time. It wasn't something that I actually had an interest in. It was something that I did to pass the time. But now that I'm actually trying to figure things out, it feels like learning things from completely from scratch. Yeah, but this dude's cool. Check him out. Yeah, Cheshire raises a good point. We see humans all the time in real life. So if you screw something up on a human, it's a lot more noticeable than if you screw things up on a pony. Because ponies don't actually exist, which is, some people would say that is a very sad thing. But the benefit of that is that if you screw the pooch on a pony, it's not that big of a deal because it's, you don't have as much of a reference in your head for that as you do for humans. But right now you can tell that my shapes are basically in the right place, but it looks very bad because this is not actually how humans work. Shockwave, please. But if we're okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about humans and how I understand the shapes that go into them. Uh, the Sequoia one I just drew was very heavily referenced. Uh, I did not so much understand what I was doing as I was learning what I was doing by looking at another picture. I do think that one came out really well, especially the feet, because like every other time I've drawn feet, it's like they're blocks, and blocks can be fine, but I don't like to draw Lego people, so I'm not interested in drawing blocks. Actually, that looks kind of good for like a construction sketch thing. Bye, Major. Thanks for coming in. But I was actually very pleased with that picture. But I'm going to go ahead and go over the human body as best as I understand it, which is not going to be very good. So I very heavily recommend, if you're interested in drawing humanoid forms, to go out and research yourself. One thing especially that I recommend if you're going to do humanoid stuff is to there are several websites where you can just do gesture drawings. Which how those websites work is they kind of flash a sequence of or they don't really flash them, but they give you a set time limit to draw a picture, and it kind of and it's a model. Some of them are nude models, some of them are clothed models, but like the ones that I've always done, I've taken 90 seconds to do, and it gives me that image for 90 seconds, and I have 90 seconds to draw that, and it really forces me to very quickly understand the form of what I'm seeing and try to be able to put that down on paper. Actually, what you might be linking, let's see what this is. Your art teacher made you do that with a nude model. That's probably it's. Did she have you do it in like very short increments? Is that what she had you do? Because I don't think that we're talking about quite the same thing. And Little Funk Man, what you're showing me is what I'm talking about. It's just one of the probably dozens and dozens of websites that do that. The one I've done has real life pictures. This one has just it has basically 3D models of things, which is great, I guess, if you need to look at the muscles of a thing and how the muscles of a thing would work. So there's definitely merit in this, but I kind of like, I don't know, I don't even remember what website it was that I used. It might be the one that Tan just linked. But actually, I've never done gesture drawings with an actual live model. That would actually be really interesting. I don't know if it's something I would be very successful at, but it's something I would definitely try. But yeah, gesture drawing is a great way of understanding the human form better. And so is finding photos of people and tracing them so that you can get so that you can so that you can better understand the shapes that make up the human body. Rio, I am not sure if I'll be doing any more streams in the future, but I am recording this one, and I'm planning on uploading it to YouTube later. So hopefully you'll be able to re-catch the stuff that you missed. And I'll be able to listen to this later and count how many times I've said the word I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. So yeah, tangent. It's only the way I understand humans is they have heads. The head is usually a circle, and if we're going to be drawing him, let's draw him from the front. I'm very bad at drawing things from the front. I have a tendency to never be able to get a straight up and down line, which is very bad, especially when drawing buildings and drawing actual scenes. It irks me, and especially when I'm drawing human faces, because then, like, I'm pretty sure the sides of this circle are not even. But that's okay, because I'm still learning how to do that. But I drew a line here down the center to separate the left and right sides. I'm going to draw another line here where I think the eyes are going to be. Oh yeah, Serge, the issue isn't straight lines. I can do that here inside just fine. It's getting lines that are at a straight up 90-degree angle. That's what I have trouble with. Uh, and, for that issue, completely horizontal lines also I have problems with. I have problems with eyeballing them. Like, even if I do this straight up across the thing, like, that looks completely horizontal to me. And it actually is pretty dang close. Wow, I'm proud of myself. But there are no grid lines in Psi 1.0. This is 1 point whatever. That is true. Psi 2 is coming out soon, and that's going to have grid capabilities, and that excites me. But that's not a thing yet. I think it's still in beta testing. But yes, Psi 2 is going to be great. But get a template. I actually have a program uh, for perspective lines and grid lines and stuff, and I'll go over that in a second. But right now we're talking about the human form, and you know, one shoe on at a time, I suppose. So we've got a circle here, but if we were drawing a pony, that would be fine. Ponies' heads are circles. Human heads are not circles unless you're drawing a very fat person. Fat people might have circular heads, depending on what you want to do. But I don't want to do that. So I put a little line here where the chin is going to be, and I bring a line down from one side and from the other side, and we have kind of a humanoid looking head here. Except it's just a shape right now. It's not much of anything. And I'm realizing that this eye line is probably going to be too low, which is a thing that I do very often. It's not great. But we can come back to the face more in a little bit. The trunk, I guess. Well, yeah. The way I draw humans is very animu. It's very cartoony. It's very simple, just like the way I draw ponies. It's just the way I draw. So if you're looking to draw realistic looking people, this is probably what I'm showing you is probably going to be a very first step. Sorry, it's a very good first step, but it's not going to be where you want to stop. Yes. The torso, as I understand it by memory, the torso, as I understand it, is kind of built into two shapes. There's this kind of almost trapezoidy thing for basically the boobs up. It's the chest. Yes. And there's kind of a circular shape for the trunk, the stomach. And that's kind of about how I shape things when I'm doing construction lines for human. I'm realizing this is going to be way too big, so I'm going to fix this using the magic of digital art. I can do that. No, it's not a bad thing, and I'm just saying that the techniques I'm using here are not going to be useful for everybody. Excuse me. There are a lot of best parts. There's Control Z is one of my favorites. Control Z has become a very important thing drawing to me, especially to the point where I've had it a few times where I draw things traditionally on pencil and paper, and I will make a mistake, and muscle memory will kick in, and I will hit Control Z on my desk where there is no keyboard. and that's always very amusing slash frustrating when that happens. I've done the exact same thing. Yeah. So, okay, good. So I'm not alone. Uh, we're both just awful. Here I'm realizing I screwed everything up. Uh, so the hips are another shape. The hips are kind of an upside down trapezoid. They're an upside down chest shape. And if you're drawing a dude, they're not going to come out nearly as far because dude hips tend not to do that. Oh man, don't get me started about inking things traditionally. That is awful. That's probably why I don't like inking things, is because I tried so much to do it traditionally, and sometimes I had success and sometimes I did not. Uh, so now it kind of just has become a thing I don't like. And yes, Dan, dudes can have hips, but they tend not to. Girls tend to have bigger hips than guys do, but sometimes they do not. Uh, Body shapes do vary a whole lot between people, and that's one of the cool things about drawing people, is that people tend not to, or people tend not to draw the same. Well, no, I can't say that. Uh, People seem a lot more willing to draw different body types in humans than they are with ponies or what have you. I kind of wish they had different body types on the show. That would be really awesome, and it would make them all a little bit more visually unique. And it's just not a thing. It's just, they're all the same puppet. But yes, uh, the hip shape is an upside down chest shape basically, and the legs are cylinders that come out of it. Celestia is her own model. Luna is her own model. Twilight is now her own model. Uh, I just think that when the show came out, I guess it didn't have quite the budget it did now. Uh, so, all the main characters are just the same model, just with different hair and eyes. They are very, very anime in that way. It's just it's a thing they had to do to save money and save time, and it doesn't look bad by any means, but it just feels like a wasted opportunity. Yeah, Mr. Cake and Mrs. Cake, they both have their own models. Some background ponies and one-shot characters tend to have their own models, and that's really cool. Which just makes it all the more jarring that the main characters are just the same pony 5 times now. It makes it just a little bit frustrating. I don't think I would be the only one who would not mind if, between seasons they just kind of changed up the models a little bit. But that's animation. That's TV. That's how it works. You know. And yeah, I guess Daniel, that's a point. If you have one good-looking model 6 times, that's a lot. It is a lot more safe than having 6 different models and having 1 or possibly 2 or possibly 3 or 4, 5, 6 that people do not like. So yeah, they do have more room to experiment with background ponies because we don't get to see those as often. But that's probably why people have formed such attachments to some of these background characters, is because they look different. And that could just be a thing with all these characters, and that could be great. But it's not. AJ needs a 24-pack and huge beefy arms. Oh man, we could just look on DeviantArt right now and I could find that for you. I don't want to find that for you, though. You're on your own there. What was I even talking about? I was talking about humans. And then I started talking about ponies. Legs. Legs are, a cylinder for the top and a cylinder for the bottom. They're the shape, the two cylinders, the top cylinder and the bottom cylinder, are two different shapes, uh, which is something you'd have to note. This is kind of over exaggerating things, but uh, it's not just you don't want to straight line block, straight line block. Here's a foot. Heck yeah, we're done. Uh, no, I draw little ponies too sometimes, guys. I don't know. But that's yeah. The shapes of different parts of the leg are different, and that's something you need to keep track of. Uh, Same thing with the arms. The arms are basically a cylinder on top and a cylinder on bottom. Uh, but again, the actual shape of these cylinders is different. And this is something you will pick up if you do life drawings and gesture drawings of people. Hands are the devil, basically. I'm not very good at hands still, which is why I tend to do this thing right here where I just, ball up a character's hands and fists and, that's, zippity doo dah, your job's done. I'm trying very hard to break myself of that because, that's boring. And while trying to do actual hands and actual feet can be frustrating, it's better off in the end. Daniel, you can find a bunch of naked people who will let you draw them on the internet. That's what the internet is for. But try Omegle. Yeah, but hands are very difficult, and they're at heart they're just you have a trapezoid. This is the hand shape. You have an oval for the thumb and another oval, well, other shape where the thumb comes out, and then you have shapes that look like broken fingers. You just do this. But the thing is, like, I understand the shapes that I'm supposed to use, but I am still working on how these shapes interact with each other. And like I'm having trouble on this, this front view of a hand. So how much more trouble do you think I have I'm trying to draw a hand actually doing things. It's melding them together in organic looking shape. That's the second half of my problem, actually, Tan. The first half of my problem is even just, putting the shapes down in the right spot, period. That's a problem I tend to have. And that's not a problem I have with other things, and especially not with like the trunk of the body and the head of the body and some other things that I used to do tons and tons. But when I want to draw anything in an interesting pose, I tend to run into problems. Like this looks kind of alright, but at the same time it doesn't look natural. Yeah, studying the actual muscles of a thing really, really does help. And that's what I heard Lemon on MLPG talking about. Somebody was asking, how do I start to draw? And I had a few things to say, and a couple other people had things to say. And Lemon was full up, like, just drop what you're doing, open up an anatomy textbook, memorize the names of every bone in the skeleton and every muscle in the body, figure out how they work together, and then maybe try and start to draw. And, yeah, see, Robo, I did a bad job. But, that's something that really shows in his work. If you've ever seen any of his stuff, he's, it looks very much like he knows where every single muscle and bone in the body is. Uh, he just has that kind of sense about him, and that's probably why he doesn't draw ponies as much anymore. Is because they don't really have as much going for them in that way, I guess. This is a very silly pose, but it kind of makes sense. Yeah, man, this is super anime. Check them out. I still don't know how to draw feet, so sometimes I just hope spaghetti blobs work. Full on side mouth mode. This has become a stream of things not to do when drawing people. Uh, I apologize, but sometimes I have to. No, this is how I draw. I draw things seriously for a while, and then I get very tired of drawing things seriously, and then I just doof around for a while. And that's one of the things that keeps drawing so interesting for me. 2 plates of spaghetti for feet. Is the fact that if things are not going well for me, uh, I draw something else. I draw something stupid, and you know get myself back in the mood to try and draw legit things again. But I mean, yeah, that's just how I do. And sometimes you get to see those stupid little drawings if I like them enough to post them places, and sometimes I just delete them forever because, good heavens, why? Whoops, let's get rid of all these. We were talking about. Actually, I was done with humans, I think. But, butts. Butts soon, I suppose. I don't actually know how to do butts very well. Uh, you know, here's a butt. Check it out. Isn't that great? If I put lines here, it is now a horse butt. And now that's wonderful. Uh, honestly, though, that's a thing I don't know very well. There you go, it's butt. Uh, that's a thing I don't know very well because it's not. It's a case of the construction lines of a thing not being the thing. There's a lot of fat in butts that tend to squish and make fun shapes and stuff. That if I'm just drawing, this is the hip box from behind. There's a line to show where the middle is and where the cheeks would be. If I just drew an actual person like this, oh man, Violet's going to teach me how to butts. I need to. I do need to learn better. But if I drew something like this, I left it like that, people would be, asking me why I'm drawing Lego men. Uh, and that's not what I don't want to draw Lego men. Not very often, anyways. How do I draw breasts? I also don't draw breasts very well, which is one of the reasons why I don't draw humans very often. But let's go back to this because I've got space on this. Think of a raindrop balloon filled with pudding. There's a lot of just slap. They're just bags of sand, right? There's a lot of things I've read on how to do them because I can't do breasts for to save my life. I have I've cheated, quote unquote cheated, and looked at reference pictures and figured out how that works. But if I'm just drawing things on, let's see, if I'm just drawing things on my own character, they tend not to be great. this looks kind of gross already. Like I've learned some things about breasts having tried to draw them. Uh, excuse me. Like where they attach and what, like if we're looking at chest block from the front. Uh, I used to just kind of do this, and then there's the torso, and then there's crotch and hips, and that's perfect. That's best. Uh, but I don't know. That's something you're going to have to figure out on your own, I guess. It's still not something uh, I really understand. It's something I'm going to have to get good at because I'm interested more in drawing, in trying to get humans down. So I'm not doing this all the time because while this is very silly and it was a lot of fun to draw, it does not look very good. And if I was going to actually show this off as a measure of my skill, I would be laughed out of the room. uh, yeah, it's something I'll learn. I'll learn by doing. I'll learn by learning. It's a thing. There was any tips on wings? Oh goodness, wings are another thing that I'm still working on learning. Uh, and sorry, I'll I'll try to cough away from the mic. I will move away from the microphone to breathe. Wings are very hard though. Like if you close them up, it's easy. They're this shape. You've got some feathers. You stick some more feathers on it, and holy cow, you have a wing kind of. Uh, but if you ever have to open your wings, like I understand they attach kind of to the spine, I guess, of the horse. Whoops, right here. Uh, but then, kind of the shape they make. I do not draw. I do not draw wings as they draw them in the show because how they draw them in the show is kind of gross. This is not how they draw them in the show. I've got an image of that somewhere. Yeah. Like how they draw them in the show is just kind of it's a few lumps, then there's a few lumps coming out of those lumps, and these are capable of suspending the horse in the air somehow. It's not. It's not how I like them. Sorry, I'm very burpy apparently. But it's how some people like them, and if you like them, then draw them like that. It's not how I like to do them. So I kind of, that leaves me in a pickle because I don't ever remember, at least, wow, where was I? There I was. I don't remember to ever look them up and try and, it looks like how a kid draws fire. I don't ever think to reference a pair of bird wings or anything because that would kind of bring up its own set of problems of what kind of bird am I using because there's like billions of birds and billions of different kinds of wings. And while that could be another interesting bit of body diversity, I suppose, in the show, but that's not how it works. When drawing it like a long, thin arm work for the base. If I was drawing something like a bat wing or a dragon wing, yes, that would be the thing. You'd see kind of a tube. You'd go for swans. Swans have very good wings. I might have to just sit down one day and learn how swan wings work and then just use it. But if I was just blocking this out, that's how the bones and muscles of a chicken wing look, right? And if I was going to draw the one on the other side, kind of like this. And it would attach here. And it's, and then you stop and you call it a day because you realize what you just drew, and it's amazing. Uh, but from there, you have to figure out where the wings go, and even like just in this picture, they don't just have wings; they have tiers of wings, and how many tiers of wings depends on the bird you're drawing. Because I've seen some with just two, and then I've seen some with three, and I think that's all that I've ever seen. Uh, but it'd be a matter of what kind of bird I was looking at. But truth be told, I've been just kind of scribbling things out and then kind of hoping for the best. And this does not look good. This is not a good representation of wings. But I tend to just kind of, we're going to assume this one is from the side. I attach them here. I make the shape for the top, kind of that I did here, but I don't put in the shape at the bottom. I just kind of, I do kind of what the show does, where I just have a few blobs here that kind of represent that first tier of wings, and they get closer and closer. They get smaller and closer to the whatever this is, the top of this shape here. As you get closer and closer to the body, they get bigger and more majestic the farther out you go. Let's see if I can make some space here. I can make space by deleting the awful stuff. Yeah. And moving things around. Or something. I don't know. Here we go. Perfect. But then I draw a second tier of wings. And these are just kind of, I have to be more careful with these, I guess. But that kind of looks like a decent set of wings. It's not, it is not anatomically correct. It is not even probably very good, but it looks good to me, and that's what I've been doing so far. That's just kind of what I do. It's something I need to learn how to do better, and I need to learn how to practice it. But it looks okay right now. Except for I think I put these way too far back. So now I've ruined everything. Disregard that whole lesson because I placed these wings too far back. Is there any other things that people are interested in seeing me talk about some? Because other than that, I think I've kind of run out of things I wanted to talk about. No, perspective. I remember people were talking about perspective. How to draw a macro pony. I can tell you how I draw a macro pony. Here we go. This is going to be, this is going to be wonderful. Hi, Alloy. You're about to watch me. You're about to learn how I draw large horses. First of all, you draw the horse. You give it a very cute hairstyle. You give it twist hairstyle, actually. You make it twist. This is how you draw a large horse. You make it twist. And then, you see, you've got your horse now. And then you select the horse. And then you scale it up. Look at that. That's beautiful, isn't it? See, that's great. See, and if you want it even better, if you want to learn how to if you want to learn how to do perspective, you just use the Free-to-Form tool. And you do it like this. And now it looks like we're viewing her from the bottom. Except it really, really doesn't. I'm okay. This is bad. I apologize. Uh, but honestly, I don't. I guess I don't know what you mean. What you mean by asking me how I draw large horses. I do the same thing that I do to draw normal sized horses, and I just make them bigger. I make them bigger before I draw them. I don't just draw twist and then upscale them afterwards. Uh, Fluffle Puffle. I tend to draw at a 700 by 700 canvas when I'm just sketching around. This is at 1100 by 700 because it better fills the screen and I can goof around on it more. Uh, but when I'm just sketching around, it tends to be at a 700 by 700 canvas, so I can see the whole canvas at a 100% zoom, and that's comfortable for me. If I'm ever drawing something more serious, I tend to draw. I'm learning. I'm making myself learn to draw at larger resolutions. But kind of a pet peeve of mine is when I see pictures that look really great from the thumbnail, when you can see the whole thing, and then when you sorry, and then when you zoom in, you're zoomed in so far that all you're seeing is like the hoof or something. It's just you don't get any sense of the entire picture anymore. You just zoomed in on this tiny little detail that no longer means anything because you don't have any context. So even though I'm learning to draw on bigger canvases, I don't. I'm still reining it in because that's my personal preference. I do have a commission coming up soon where the person wants me to draw their character and make it at a printable resolution, which is going to be like 3500 by 3500 or something, and I don't. I'm going to have to draw that super huge, and that's going to be an experience I haven't had in like 2 years. Uh, but that's going to be fun. I was talking about perspective. We were talking about perspective. Perspective is awful, and it's not something that I do very well. It's something I kind of cheat at. One of the things, like that, the perspective drawer that somebody linked, where it was those 3D models, that has the things in that website also has just you can look at those 3D models yourself. Uh, and the cool thing about that website is it has those models where you can look at them at any angle. Uh, so you can kind of practice perspective and how those shapes sit on top of each other at different perspectives. There is nothing like that I've found for ponies, uh, except for like if I wanted to get Gmod or something and import those pony models and rotate them to a perspective I wanted. That's something I've kind of considered a couple times, but it's too much trouble, honestly. Uh, so basically, I've been taking what I know about the shapes that form a pony, and if we're saying these are our perspective lines where we're looking up, this is the body shape. I know that there's kind of a neck here. Excuse me. And that, the head has to be kind of here. Let's make this a little bit smaller so I can have the whole thing here. I know that the legs kind of exist here, and they're going to have to get wider as they come down because that's how things work. Connects here. You've got a cylinder here. You've got a joint here. And then you've got here, and you've got hoof for that stompy thing that people like. And then you've got like the rear body circle. That would actually be kind of up here. Twist deserves an Enma, I assure you. Got the hip circle here. That. Except that's wrong. I don't know. It's just perspective horse is deceptively hard to draw. This is true, and I talked about it earlier, but kind of the reason it's so hard is because we don't really ever see them at any kind of angles. Uh, so it's hard to kind of imagine things because we never really see them at other angles. So we have like a few artists that have drawn things at really cool angles, and the rest of us kind of just have to you know work off of those, I guess, or try and figure things out ourselves. Uh, a good general rule for perspective is to is again, if you're thinking of things in three-dimensional shapes, it makes things a lot easier uh, because you're not just thinking of the drawing as a symbol. Yeah, Robo, I can post that in a second. But if you're thinking of your ponies or your humans or whatever as a set of three-dimensional objects, then it's a lot easier to work out how those three-dimensional objects are supposed to interact with each other. Let me find that website. Pose Maniacs. There you go. Low angle pony heads are very confounding, and it's a thing that I run into all the time. Not even just with like macro stuff or whatever, but with just characters looking up. It's kind of hard to think of how the chin is supposed to interact with the lower jaw at that angle and with the chin, and things tend to look very bad sometimes. Uh, that's another thing that I need to work on more. The same thing with heads at an upper angle, because we don't get to see that very often either. So it's another thing you kind of have to that you have to guess at, and it's just I don't mean guess at. I mean you kind of have to work it out. But the fly in the ointment there is the eyes. Thank you, Zash. Goodbye, Zash. But like if I was doing this, and if this was the top of the head, like this is where, say, Twilight's horns comes out of. Their eyes are just so huge that you kind of have to figure out a way of putting them where they're supposed to go and not make them look too big. It's actually, this doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't look it looks wrong. I don't know. It's another thing that I don't know how to do very well. Something that I got to figure out. But luckily at this angle, it's Twilight, so you just put her hair there. And, oh my gosh, look at that. You won. But, yeah. Perspective is something that still very much eludes me. I told you guys I was going to show you a program I use to help lay down perspective lines and grids even. So if you'll give me 2 seconds, I will link this to you. This is a very, very helpful tool. It's super easy to use. Control V. There we go. It's free, so you don't have to worry about that. It's wonderful. Like I said, I have trouble getting straight up horizontal and straight up vertical lines, and this has a built-in grid tool where I can just make a grid, copy it into Psi, and then I have a set of vertical and horizontal lines to work from. It works. It's great. You're welcome. And I can't think. I thought there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I don't think there is. There's if you hit FMGF, if you hit F1 in there, it just opens up a little help thing that lays out all the controls. right there for you. And, it's just buildings. Buildings go hand in hand with that perspective tool. Buildings, at their heart, it's just a skyscraper is a set of three lines. Bam, bam, bam. Whoops. It's a set of three lines if you do it right. Composition is something I am totally awful at, and you are not going to do yourself any favors by listening to me talk about it. Sorry. There's no rest for you, Robo. Buildings are everywhere. But if you're just going to do, if you're going to do a skyline for a picture, you can just accept better. Wow, like I thought it was going to be simple to just whatever. But you can basically do this thing, except less bad. And hey, look, you've got a simple background thing for you. But if you're wanting to do something interesting with perspective, grab that program I just... Oh, well, here, we'll have Robo talk about this, because Robo loves buildings. If you grab that perspective problem, perspective program that I linked you guys, you can turn... Whoops. I wanted to erase that. You can turn this into, this, and, or this, I guess, if you're... Whoops. But even with these, it's a matter of thinking about them as, there's a lot to them I'm glossing over. I'm talking about basics right now. I don't know a whole lot. But thinking about buildings as three-dimensional objects, I'm talking about skyscrapers. Skyscrapers are just blocks, kind of. And that's true, Robo. I don't put a whole lot of thought into buildings, and if you look at any of my pictures with buildings in them, it really shows. It's something I am trying to do a bit better about. But, I can't... Right now I'm just talking about squares, basically. But there's all kinds of really neat-looking buildings, and, you can... Again, that's the thing. You go outside or find images of online and draw them yourself. And then eventually you'll be able to imagine them, hopefully. But talking about destructed buildings, like FMGF was wanting, that's kind of a matter. That's, if you think of it as a three-dimensional object, say somebody took a bite out of this. Not only did they take a bite out of this side, out of this front side, but that bite would have had to have gone through that side also. Say the name of those links. Oh, the program that I'm talking about, the perspective program, is called Carapace. And if you Google Epic Games Carapace, Carapace, it will get you right to that program. And the figure drawing tool I was talking about earlier was Pose Maniacs. Although there's billions and billions of those, I'm sure online, you just figure that out. But the thing is about this building is, you've got, whatever it is, had a bite taken out of it, or took a bite out of it, but they didn't just bite the walls. There's stuff inside this. There's floors in this building, and that's kind of crucial to think of. And these floors also all have to follow the perspective to be correct. And if you're going to draw the inside of a building somewhere, if you're going to draw the inside of a building somewhere, you have to remember that buildings have insides, and that they have floors, and that they're built to house things. And if it's an office, if it's a skyscraper and it's an office building, there's going to be desks and chairs and whatever in it. The best I've done, I've done this a few times where I'd done a destructed building once that I really, really liked, but my problem with it was that the building was practically empty, and it looked really boring, and I wasn't very fond of that. So it's a lot of effort to kind of keep in mind uh, what the insides of the building you're showing are, and it's going to be a whole lot of details you have to throw in, and it's going to be a whole lot of drawing the same thing over and over, probably, especially if it's office buildings or if it's homes or if it's something. You're going to be drawing a lot of couches or a lot of potted plants or a lot of TVs or a lot of the same thing, and that can get boring a little bit. So I guess it just depends on if it's worth it to you to depict that level of detail, or you can just go the super easy route and just draw a pile of rubble. Look, there was a building here, now it's gone. I don't know. But that is something I need to learn to do better. It's just not something that comes up in my normal drawing activities because I tend not to like things at that size or things that are that destructive. But yeah, buildings are a thing you might have to do on your own. Uh, all right, what else? I suppose. What else? Teach us to be half as charming as you. Well, Daniel, the first thing you have to do is learn how to be zero charming, and then divide that zero by, or multiply that zero by half, and then you get to what you want to be. I don't. Yes, I don't know. No, that's the thing, Robo. I can kind of put in my head like I know in my head that there's going to be an inside to this building, and that there's going to be you know offices and whatever and people and whatever inside the building, but I just cannot be bothered to draw it all out half the time. Uh, and that's the thing. That might be one of the reasons why I don't like drawing destruction is because I'm too lazy. But honestly, the couple of times I have drawn destruction, even recently, it's been kind of fun because it's been like a puzzle. It's been, I can't just draw these squiggles where you know the destruction has happened. I have to think about where pieces of the building have fallen, if they're going to fall on a character or just on the ground, or or inside the building even. Uh, I have to figure out. It's just a big old puzzle, and I very much like puzzles. But when it comes to drawing a whole bunch of offices or whatever inside buildings, or drawing a whole bunch of cars on the road, or drawing a whole bunch of people running around or something, I just get bored, which is really bad, honestly. Uh, but the few times I have drawn it, it's actually been a lot of fun, especially when you keep in mind that this puzzle, this wall isn't two dimensional; it has some width to it. So I would draw out that width, and heck yeah, that looks marginally better than it did earlier. But uh, I do really like thinking about things in three dimensions. It's a lot of fun. I don't so much like the violent aspect, the violent implications, but that's the thing. That's the thing people do like, and that's fine. That's just not me. Somebody said I read something about mains. Anything about hair mains? Yeah, Gemini. Gemini, what was it you were wanting to know about mains and hair? While I'll doodle things while I'm waiting for you, I guess. This is going to be a great stream for people to come back and watch. It's going to be very educational. General advice about just drawing them, because again, that would come down to just looking at the show and remembering or figuring out how they do it in the show. Uh, like, Twilight's. Let's see. Let's look at Twilight's actual mane. There's Twilight's actual mane. We'll get rid of that layer. Like here, she has an ear, she has a horn, and this kind of has a cool little curve to it. It looks like it's actually almost three-dimensional. You can see here, here, here. It's got some form to it, which is fun, which is something that you can remember later on and use on your own. The weird thing that I don't like about it is that her horn just kind of pops out of it, but it kind of pops out in between the strands. Let's brighten this up. It pops out in between what look like strands of her hair. So whenever I draw Twilight's hair, I kind of draw a break in it to make it look like, that that cone of the horn could realistically exist, not just the two-dimensional thing that we see, but it looks like the cone of the horn is actually parting her hair some. But Twilight's mane is very heavy. It's very flat. It just kind of it just kind of lays there. So I guess that's a pretty good thing to think of, because a lot of people's hair kind of does the same thing. Well, maybe not a lot, but that is a hair type that people have, is just kind of it lays flat, it falls on their shoulders, it follows the form of the shoulders, and it falls down on their back. It's very gravity dependent. If we move on to somebody like Rarity's hair, check this mess out. Jiminy, it depends on what I'm drawing, I suppose. If you look at any of the characters I have, they all do not have, none of them have mohawks. And that probably disturbs Flying Saucer to no end. But that's okay, because forget him. I know realistically it should it should be a mohawk, because that's how horses work, and that's how actually all of these characters in the show, or the main characters at least, their hair is all basically mohawks. They're just very stylish mohawks. Rarity is awful, and I hate drawing. Well, I love drawing her mane. I just hate trying to draw it like in the show. It's casual talking, and you know it. But check this girl out. She has a head. She's got pony snout. She's got her horn. But her hair would basically start in the middle of her head and kind of does this weird wraparound. It's very, very springy and bouncy, and this is not how I draw her hair at all. Let's finish this up, and then I'll honestly, and that honestly surprises me a little bit, because I thought I was doing pretty good by following what the show does, which I don't. I'm not, apparently. If I was going to draw Rarity's hair, she's going to have her little snout and her very happy eyes. She is very happy. I don't know why. Probably because she's second best pony. But I tend to always put her whatever, I guess, the bangs, quote unquote, always tend to go behind her. So I always just have this kind of curve that comes here and comes down on the side of her face. Then I have some circles, and I make those circles make sense a little bit. And then I kind of just bring the back of the hair around. Oh man, HB, you should totally draw some MLP stuff. Draw the horses. Go forth and horse apply. Actually, yeah, and this post is about how I think of it. So that's actually great to know that I'm thinking about things in a decently correct manner. It used to be super hard. I still don't know how to do her tail. Her tail makes no sense to me, logically. Uh, like here, you know, it's a couple of springies, and it kind of like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like this part makes sense to me, and then all of a sudden we've got like what looks to me like just a completely disembodied shape. I don't see how this connects to this at all. It's hard. And then how this, because this looks like it's its own cylinder. It doesn't seem to be actually going anywhere. But then apparently this third shape at the end connects in somehow. I just I don't know. Like basically the three her tail is three parts, and each of the three parts themselves make sense to me, but they don't make much sense connected. Look at that happy horse. Think a corkscrew, and I do. And when I think a corkscrew, I would think her mane would go something like this. Then it would kind of wrap around. I would think it would wrap around again or something. I don't know. Well, I'm glad if you guys see how it works. I cheat is what I do because I'm very bad. That's just it's one of those things where I should probably understand it better, but it's rarity and who cares. I'd much rather figure out how Celestia's main works because have you seen that? Like this thing can leave. Like Celestia has this thing going on. She's got eyes on the front of her face. She's got ears on the back of her face. She's got a horn up here somewhere. But then she's got, what a lot of people just go wow, wow, wow. But that looks bad. Uh, there was a tutorial done by Ross, of all people, that actually made a lot of sense, where he explained that Celestia's hair is it's 2D. Like if we were looking at it from the front, let's move you over here. If we were looking at it from the front and she was doing that thing like we see her from the side where the hair comes out, it would basically be doing this, and we'd see it here and here. If you don't know who I'm talking about, that's fine. It's it's fine. He's actually not a bad artist. He just draws things that a lot of people don't like, and he has kind of a garbage attitude sometimes. Uh, if you like what he draws and you like him, then I'm sorry. I actually tend really not to say bad things about anybody. But so I apologize. I shouldn't be saying anything rude. But just let it be known that he is. His name is Ross, and he's more or less in the mood of never explaining how he does things, or never, or never taking any advice from people. Uh, but he actually made a tutorial on Celestia's hair once. Not Ross from Game Grumps, different Ross. He actually goes by Ultra Hand now sometimes, and he draws lots and lots of fat characters. Which if you like fat stuff, then I hear he's your guy. That's not something I like much, so I can't tell if he's doing it right or not. But that's a thing he likes to draw a lot. But he's kind of got a reputation about not taking people's advice, not being able to give advice. But he did make a tutorial on Celestia's hair. This is what I was trying to talk about. That actually made a lot of sense, and it kind of just it. He said that if you think of it as like a two-dimensional ribbon kind of waving back and forth a little bit, uh, that will help you. That will help you make the shapes on her side view or a three-quarters view or something. It'll make that go a lot smoother, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's it's something that's stuck. So basically, if I do a curve here like this at the bottom has to be kind of a curve matching it. And I'm going to make things, well, no, I'm not. In the show, yes, it does look the same from all angles, and I tend to kind of draw it the same from all angles, but, because, again, I'm bad. But it's kind of fun to think about things. Her mane would have a bit of volume. It wouldn't be just it wouldn't be purely dimensional. You're right, UW. But if you think of it as very close to that, at least, that will help you learn how to shape it a lot better. Sorry, excuse me. Yes, possibly. And then she's got these cool bangs that I don't think exist in the show, but they existed in that her micro issue of the comic, and that's kind of what has informed me the most about drawing her. Is how she appeared in that one issue of the comic. That's kind of when I started to actually really like her, was reading that comic, and I don't know, they did a really good job of drawing her, and I like her a lot. Uh, why do Sunbutt and Moonbutt have special hair, but Cadence and Twilightcorn have normal hair? My answer for that is going to be magic. Uh, yeah, they're just a lot older. They've got a lot more magic. That's reasons. Cadence kind of has silly hair. She's got a gradient going on, I believe. A very weak gradient. But, she's also kind of magical. Or, hey, even better is if you wanted to draw Celestia. And then you just made her hair wet or something. That's not Chrysalis. Do you see all this awesome jewelry she's got on? That can't. Bad characters don't wear jewelry like that. Chrysalis is also a lot of fun though, because her hair. Oh, the thing I liked a lot about Chrysalis's design was how emaciated she looked, how thin and like starving almost. They made her look, which really kind of spoke a lot about her character. Even if you didn't know anything about her, you could tell that she was hungry. It's what she looked like. Everything about her was thin or falling apart. And she has evil eyes and whatever. And her horn isn't even like, if she was going to have a big old horn, it would be like that. But even her horn is kind of broken apart. And this is probably not correct, but it's jagged and gross. And it looks like it has holes in it. And she even has like these weird old, almost goat ears. But, and her, like, that are not, big and thick. And her hair just kind of drapes down. And it's a lot longer than this, actually. I'm kind of just geeking out about her character design, but, Chrysalis I liked a lot. And it's, I like her a lot. It's one of the things that I think is interesting about drawing, what's her name? Elytra, the changeling whatever girl that I have, is trying to make her look like she's thin and falling apart and kind of gross and whatever, without making her look too much like that, I guess. She's got really thin legs. Even her haunches are really thin and tiny. Like even uh, compared to the other princesses, the princesses kind of have, look at this. This is thin and dainty, and they have like the princesses have no butts. But even compared to that, Chrysalis has no butt. She has no legs. She has no nothing. I don't see why people are crazy about her. But the holes are a lot of fun, because it makes her look like she's just breaking apart. The little bug armor, whatever, is fun. Her wings are kind of different, I think. Yeah, her wings are gross, and they've got holes in them, and they would never be able to actually let her fly. And I don't know. And her tail just falls straight down. There is no bounce to it. There is nothing. It just, dang, that's cool. Excuse me. Wow. Uh, that's probably not. I'm going to take a look at a picture of actual Chrysalis after this, and I'm going to be mad at how little this actually looks like her. But that's fine. It looks good, I think, to me, and that's what I'm going for. Uh, what else was I wanting to talk about? I made her too fat. There we go. Now she is stick. I have a tendency of doing that. I tend to make things chubbier than they should be because it's honestly fun, more fun. Still too fat. I can't go any fatter. How long have I even been streaming? You guys have been watching me for 2.5 hours. This is going to be lots of fun to export to YouTube. Uh, Actually, I think 2.5 hours is a good place to stop. I've covered a lot of things. I've been rambling wildly at points too. I've I've actually drawn some chubby pony Jiminy. It's fun. I don't like obese stuff very much personally. Uh, but a bit of chub is fun. But yes, I am going to exit the stream now. I'm going to cross my fingers and pray that this was actually recording this whole time. Because if not, I'm going to be kind of disappointed. Uh, and I'm going to see lots of you folks right after this stream, probably. And some of you I will not. Uh, I'm going to save all of these sketches, actually. Well, most of them. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to click out. Thanks for coming in, everybody. It was lots of fun. Uh, what, Daniel? I am not doing a regular stream after this. Sorry, I've spent the last 2.5 hours drawing for people. I'm probably going to play some video games or something. Or probably draw for myself. Uh, yeah, no, that's how it's going to be. Thanks for coming in, guys. Bye.